decision.
Fundamental questions of navigation. Where am I? Where am I going? And how do I get there from here?
I invite the leaders of our planet to ask themselves these three questions before they make any crucial decisions.
But if you don't make decisions, you're going to stay right where you are.
We are all map makers.
We are in a time of transition.
If we're going to change, we have to change the direction that we're going.
Our planet needs leaders who know where they want to go.
When we change the direction we're going, then we want to make sure we're going in the right direction.
Leaders who can see the big picture.
Because if we're not, we're going to either go backwards or we're going to stay where we are.
Recognizing the psychological and the spiritual shifts and changes that need to be made, often from the inside to the outside.
To be able to shape your future, you have to be willing and able to change your paradigm.
Complex journeys require navigation. The path to the truth is one such journey. This is your GPS. Hairstyling services provided by J.D. Edwards Salon and Spa, Palmdale Shopping Plaza, Madera Street.
A pleasant good afternoon to one and all, and welcome to GPS Global Paradigm Shift on Global 99.5 FM. I'm your host, Michelle Malcolm, and as always, it's a pleasure to be in your company today. Thank you so much for tuning in on this beautiful Monday afternoon here in the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. This is a masterclass Monday, which means that we are going to once again be diving into the Constitution of the Bahamas. And our tour guide is none other than Professor Sidney MacArthur Walter Thompson, who's going to help us to, get a better understanding of that document that is known as the Supreme Law of the Land. Before we bring Professor onto the stage, let's tell you how you can become a part of today's show. If you have a question or a comment, the telephone numbers to call are 326-0271. That's 326-0271, 326-0272, 326-0272. And the WhatsApp line for messages and calls is 801-0271. That's 801-0271. We're streaming live on Facebook on the official Michelle Malcolm and Global 99.5 FM pages. If you haven't already done so, please like and share the show. Let everybody know that GPS is on the air. Also coming to you live from rumble.com. That's rumble.com. Look for Global Paradigm Shift. All one word, no spaces in between. And please go ahead and follow my channel there. Also, we're coming to you on Cable Bahamas, channel 974. And you can download the Global 99.5 FM app to your smart device and carry us with you 24/7. Last but not least, welcome to all of you who are tuned in by way of Radio Land, whether it's from here in New Providence, Grand Bahama, throughout the country and around the world. A special welcome to you all. So let's bring Professor Sidney MacArthur Walter Thompson onto the stage. Professor, how doest thou today? Jason, I need you to unmute his microphone, please. He's muted. Okay, there we go. How you doing today?
I'm doing quite well, and good afternoon, Michelle Malcolm, and good afternoon to the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. It's good to be here on Mondays, which is, of course, what we call Constitution Day in the Commonwealth of the Bahamas.
Right.
We specifically deal with the supreme law of the land, and there must be the rule of law. Everything must be done according to the Constitution of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, from person in the highest office straight on down to the average citizen. When you have disrespect for the rule of law, and that's the supreme law of the land, you're going to have all kinds of problems. and you can see the lawlessness in our own country, particularly with this crime that's on
Yeah.
now. We have some, I believe, 17 or so persons who have been murdered so far for the month of January. And I understand it is 100% over what was last year. That is no encouragement at all. We're going to have to do something about this criminal element that's in our midst. And I've heard a lot of comments being made about it. And I always ask myself, how is it that we're not even looking at the supreme law of the land when it comes to regulating the way we ought to behave, the way we ought to live in the Commonwealth of the Bahamas? Now, there are people who want to have rule. They want to rule over other people, but they themselves don't seem to understand anything about the supreme law. We have the supreme law, plus we have statute laws, which ought to conform to the supreme law of the land. Now, every time when I look at something,
let me ask you a question. You mentioned the supreme law, the
yes,
statute law that is to conform to the supreme law, and you
that's correct.
also mentioned the rule of law.
The rule of law.
How do the three of them coexist? What is that relationship supposed to look like?
Well, let's put it this way. You must always start with the supreme law of the land. That's number one. Whatever the supreme law says, that's it. That's final. Now, you will find that there have been statute laws that have been passed in the Parliament of the Bahamas, and those statute laws may not necessarily conform to what the supreme law says. I am prepared to work with any statute law that conforms to the supreme law. Where there's a conflict, as Article 2 tells you in the Constitution, any other law, whether it's statute law, laws from other places, you know, the country has signed on to all sorts of agreements, what we don't know about. Right. It's unfortunate that, you know, we operate this way and we don't tell the people anything. The people don't have any input. And so a lot of funny things have been signed onto, and I understand all kind of agreements and treaties and so on have been signed, and yet still the Bahamian people do not know what they are. We have to examine every single one of them in light of the supreme law. Now, when it comes to the statute law, the statute laws are made for the express purpose of expanding on what the supreme law says, because not everything is in the supreme law. The thing is that the statute laws are there to guide you as to how you ought to conduct yourself, say with traffic regulations and dealing with garbage and dealing with your neighbors and so on, and also paying your taxes and everything like that. That's fine. Now, when it comes to the rule of law, it means that the government of the Bahamas and the citizenry ought to obey the law. You always hear the talk, no one is above the law, and sometimes you wonder about that. What does that mean? No one is above the law. When it comes to the rule of law, no one is exempted. You have a responsibility to fulfill to the Bahamian people. If you are a legislator, that doesn't mean you pass laws in the House and then say, that don't apply to me. I could do it if I feel like doing. It doesn't work that way. The parliamentarians are responsible for passing legislation. Article 52(1) tells you clearly. Parliament may pass what? Pass laws for the peace, 1, order, 2, good government of the Bahamas. Now, do we have those 3 significant ingredients in statute law? In every statute law, the answer is no. It just doesn't exist. Now, there are some that conform, and see, even if a portion of the law conforms, that portion of the law you keep, the other part is null and void. You may have an entire law that may be contrary to the Constitution. The entire law is null and void. Say, for example, this Bahamas Nationality Act. The Bahamas Nationality Act has many inconsistencies in that particular bill because it's not a law, because it didn't go through the procedures mentioned in Article 54, dealing with particularly matters relating to citizenship. It didn't go through the 3 stages: House of Assembly, 3/4, Senate, 3/4, and it had to be signified by the Speaker and by the President of the Senate. And then the 3rd point, to a referendum. That has never been done for the Bahamas Nationality Act. That has to be certified by the parliamentary registrar. There was no referendum on the Bahamas Nationality Act. So it's still a bill, even a law to begin with. But they're passing it off as a bill, a law.
So let me ask you something for the point of clarification. I thought that the only time you needed to do a referendum is if that particular part of the Constitution is entrenched, that if you want to change a part of the Constitution that is entrenched, then you have to go to referendum. But not all parts of the Constitution are entrenched. Is that correct?
Most of it, the vast majority of it is entrenched.
Okay.
I'm happy that it is. Because you see, the Bahamas Nationality Act is taking on constitutional law, right? That are entrenched. And we have been through that sufficiently in these shows that I've been doing here.
Mm-hmm.
And proving to the Bahamian people, we've been through we didn't go through the entire thing. But there are many inconsistencies in the Bahamas Nationality Act. The Bahamas Nationality Act is saying to you, you don't even have to give up your citizenship, which is contrary to constitutional law. There are some people who got all kinds of citizenship. The Constitution does not recognize dual citizenship. Some got 3 and 4. And if a Bahamian citizen takes on the rights that apply to citizens of another country, their citizenship should be voided. That's also in your Constitution. You can't have 2 citizenships. We got plenty of people around here with 2, 3, and 4 and say there's Bahamian. Any crap like that. But the Bahamas Nationality Act says you can have dual citizenship, a direct violation of constitutional law. And these are the things we need to look at whenever the government passes any piece of legislation. You must check to see, is it constitutionally sound? Yes or no. Either it's right or it's wrong, in part or in full. And that's how I look at every piece of legislation now that I get my hands on. The first thing I check the Constitution. Is it constitutionally sound? If the legislation is not constitutionally sound, it is null and void. If portions of it are not constitutionally sound, it is null and void. It's just as simple as that. And many things have been done in this country, and we as Bahamians, we are not even checking to see whether, say, but this thing about information on the crime.
Mm-hmm.
Is the government constitutionally sound? We heard they put out one report. We understand they have 5 points in the report. Is that report constitutionally sound? Yes or no? That's where you start from. What does the Constitution have to say in relation to what it is the government of the Bahamas intends to do? Because the government has to be lawful. If the government does anything that is unconstitutional, the government of the Bahamas is unlawful. People need to understand that. The man then tells me he's fighting crime. He's going after the criminals. Is he going after the government of the Bahamas when it violates the Constitution? That is a serious thing. The man then tells me he's fighting crime. I don't have a problem with him fighting crime.
You try to say the government is acting criminally, so they need to go after themselves? Is that what you try to say?
If the government of the Bahamas violates the Constitution, is that a criminal act? Is that a criminal act, or that's lawful? It's not lawful. It's criminal. When the government violates the Constitution, it's criminal. So if you go after the fella in Baintown who steals that can of corned beef, and you say he's violating the law, well, then you got to go after the government too. You can't tell me you are fighting crime and the government itself violates the Constitution. That's criminal. So we got to fix that.
You know, just to be the devil's advocate, right? You know, there's a saying, if a tree falls in the woods and there's nobody there to hear it, does it really make a sound? So maybe the government believes that if they can get away with doing all of this stuff and nobody is saying one thing or the other, then as far as they're concerned, they're not doing anything wrong because nobody is sounding any kind of alarm. Nobody is making any noise about it. So just, keep carrying on.
The point is, I'm glad you brought that point up because, see, you could be stealing for the last 50 years. The fact is you're still stealing. That doesn't make it right.
Whether because you get caught or not.
The Supreme Law says you're wrong. The point is the Bahamian people need to wake up and realize what is happening in your country. Is the government of the Bahamas acting constitutionally in their actions? That's what you have to ask yourself. Because I've come on this show and I've explained in graphic detail violations by the government of the Bahamas in relation to the Constitution. The proof is right there in front of you. We have gone sufficiently through the Bahamas Nationality Act, and we could go through it some more and compare it with the Constitution of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. That's how you get your answer.
So
you always look at what the government of the Bahamas is doing, one, what they say. That's why I like to read those speeches that they put out there.
Mm-hmm.
They never come back and tell you they made a mistake and they need to correct it. The hardest thing for a human being to do is to admit error and change. So once they put it out there, they leave it out there. So the only thing you have to wait with is the supreme law of the land to see whether the government of the Bahamas is right or wrong. And if they persist in doing that which is unconstitutional, there's a remedy for that too. So because it falls down in the forest and nobody hears it, it doesn't change the fact that if you're violating the Constitution, it is still criminal. It's wrong. It's just as simple as that.
I have a question coming in on Facebook. This person, this is Siobhan Hollis, and Siobhan says, see if I can get it to come up. Give me a second here.
Yes,
Siobhan says, who implemented the Nationality Act and can it be repealed?
The Nationality Act is not even law to begin with, because you need three distinct things being done in order to deal with any changes in the supreme law regarding entrenched provisions. The Bahamas Nationality Act is dealing with these entrenched provisions in the Constitution. And the Bahamas Nationality Act is not a legal document. It has been purported to be. So when you use it, you are not legally, lawfully, constitutionally sound. Legally, lawfully, constitutionally, you're not sound because it goes contrary to the Constitution. It's just as simple as that. And I said there's a remedy because the Constitution gives you the remedy how to deal with a government that violates the Constitution. So if we're going to sit here and let us become like Sudan, where the country break up in two parts and two fellas fighting and carrying on bad and slaughtering a whole lot of people, if we wanted to get to that extent, instead of dealing with it now while we have the opportunity, because you see in those African countries, they're experimenting with democracy. We have been fortunate on this side from 1729 to have peaceful transitions of administrations. I didn't say peaceful transition of governments, because there's only one government. We even ain't get that through our heads yet. We talk about this government and that government. What you have, administrations of the government of the Bahamas. The Pinling administration, the Christie administration, the Davis administration, the Minnis administration. It's one government. So the government of the Bahamas has been violating the Constitution for 50 years. That's what we've been having from day one, from inception. And that's the harsh reality Bahamians have to face. The very people you sent there to protect your interests are the very people who are violating the supreme law. That's the problem. Now, that may sound difficult for people to accept, but that's the harsh reality. The evidence is right there. Abundance of evidence to prove it. And the Bahamas National Act is only a piece of the evidence. There's some other things where violations have occurred. And so we got to look at these violations. You can't take them lightly, because here's what's going to happen. You're going to have the same problem happen what happened in Sudan, where two fellas fighting, and people are suffering badly. The economy all break up. Today we have plenty of tourists coming in here, and particularly in the area where I live, you have them flooding there by the thousands every day.
Mm-hmm.
The point is that is good for the economy, but you got a high crime rate in the country. And some particular minister said that that's not going to affect the tourists.
I saw that comment.
Yeah, it's only a matter of time, you know. You see, sometimes we have our leaders make stupid decisions and make foolish statements because we don't correct them. We allow them to carry on with this crap over and over and over again. And we just sit on our backsides and say, sir, you're wrong. You're dead wrong. And here's why you're wrong. Bring the proof, bring the evidence, and show him why he's wrong. I've done that every time on this show. That's why I have this Constitution with me.
Well, I would like to say that I, with all due respect to the minister, I think it would be foolish for us to believe that if we allow this criminal element to go unchecked, that it won't have an impact on our tourism. I just think that's a foolish position to take. I look at a country like El Salvador, which had a reputation for, you know, being a hotspot for serious crimes, and that reputation preceded them around the world to the degree that it did impact people's, you know, desire to visit that country. And the president, the young president that took over, decided enough is enough, and he put some tough measures in place, went after all of the gangs and the criminals, locked them up, arrested them in the hundreds. And I mean, you know, and now it has turned the reputation of that country around to the degree where people are now seeing it as a whole new a place to experience. Had he not made the difficult decisions that he would have made to clean up the act of that country, God forbid, they would not have been enjoying what they're enjoying now in terms of the increase in visitors to the country. The reputation has improved. So to say that it's not going to impact, I don't understand that logic. I really don't.
When you have statements like that coming from your leaders, it impacts on the local population. That's the problem we have in this country. See, a lot of them don't read, they don't study, they're not properly educated, and they just believe whatever these particular personalities say to them. And we've had this kind of thing going over and over and over again. Ministers of the government contradicting one another. The man come out and say he didn't do anything wrong. The cabinet comes around and say the minister didn't do anything wrong. the cabinet has done nothing wrong. This is the kind of thing you have. Now, when the government does something wrong, we need to tell them. How many of us are going to stand up and tell them, Mr. Government, you're wrong. Mr. Prime Minister, you're wrong. Mr. Tourism Minister, you're wrong. When are we going to start doing that? Let's tell them also when they're right too. Huh? But we got too many violations of the Constitution in this country today by the government of the Bahamas. That's criminal. So I can see how they can fix that. There's only one way you fix that is you have to do it constitutionally. You can't come up with any ordinary legislation as they have been advised by the Attorney General. That's unconstitutional too. And so we sit back and we don't discuss these things. I listen to the talk shows and I hear them say all manner of things. I don't want to get into these things, what people expressing their views. They have a right to express a view, but the view doesn't have to be right. It doesn't have to be wrong. The Constitution says freedom to impart ideas and opinions without interference. Now, some people have a difficulty with that, so I can leave that right there. The point is that we have to examine our country carefully because there are some things that are terribly wrong in this place, particularly with the crime. We have to correct it. And we got to move quickly to do it before it's too late and become just like Sudan and some of them other places out there that are struggling with democracy. Now, we have our problems with democracy in the country, but we could always overcome that. But we cannot afford to let the thing keep falling down, down, down until everything just breaks up in front of you. That doesn't make any sense.
Okay, we have to take a break. When we come back on the other side of the break, I want us to pick up where we left off last week. Getting back 15. Into we covered Article 15 of the Constitution last week. So when we come back from the break, we're going to pick up at Article 16 of the Constitution as we go through it article by article, line by line, to give our audience a better understanding of the document. Stay with us. We'll be back after these words from our sponsors. This is GPS.
Global Paradigm Shift will return after this.
Understanding your microbiome, also known as your gut ecosystem, can change everything you thought you knew about nutrition, digestion, immunity, and metabolism. Keeping your gut ecosystem healthy and balanced is essential. Ultimate Microbiome by Longevity was specifically formulated to optimize this ecosystem. It provides the advanced support your gut needs through prebiotic, probiotic, and postbiotic supplementation. Our unique blend of probiotics includes Lactobacillus and Plantarum, healthy bacteria that can help prevent harmful bacteria from taking over your gut. Increasing your gut's population of beneficial bacteria creates a more balanced gut microbiome, which has been shown to aid in weight loss, skin health, sleep, mood, and may even help with seasonal allergies. Ultimate Microbiome also promotes the production of postbiotics. Postbiotics are key to help regulate your gastrointestinal health. To enhance digestion, Digizyme Multi-Enzyme Complex, a blend of 5 specific enzymes, has been added to Ultimate Microbiome. It can help break down food so your body can better absorb nutrients. Plus, we've added our proprietary I-26 Hyperimmune Egg Powder to aid in the elimination of disease-causing gut bacteria and help your body balance its immune response. Ultimate Microbiome, the scientific, proprietary, and holistic approach to gut health that helps optimize your body's entire gut ecosystem. To learn more, contact your Longevity associate.
Welcome to Sunshine Auto, the hardest place on the planet for rims, tints, and tires.
We are your auto superstore for rims, Lexani, Azaras, Trueform, Western, Lux, Fuel, Trackline, Tough, Rough Racing, Velocity, Mud, All-Terrain, and low-profile tires, cars, homes, and commercial window tinting. At Sunshine Auto, we put God first and customer is king.
Blessed love.
To stay stay healthy, it's crucial to make sure you get the nutrition you need every day. But it's difficult to get all your recommended vitamins and minerals from food alone. Even in the United States, 94% of people are deficient in at least one nutrient. Beyond Tangy Tangerine 2.0 by Youngevity is a simple, convenient, and affordable way to help your body get the essential nutrients it needs. It's an advanced plant-driven multivitamin mineral complex that contains certified organic whole foods, trace minerals, and antioxidants. BTT 2.0 supports your body's natural defense system with a proprietary blend of energy-boosting and body-loving nutrients, plus prebiotics, probiotics, amino acids, and enzymes that support digestion. With an unusually high ORAC score of 8,000, you get even more antioxidants to help combat free radicals that can cause damage to your cells. But to get the most benefit and value from any multivitamin, your body must be able to break down the nutrients so you can fully absorb them. Otherwise, they'll just pass through your system without doing any good. Beyond Tangy Tangerine 2.0 was specially formulated with synergizing cofactors to ensure you get maximum nutrient absorption. Beyond Tangy Tangerine 2.0 is the easiest way to give your body the balance and complete daily vitamin mineral supplement it needs for optimal support of your overall health. To learn more, contact your Youngevity associate.
This portion of GPS is brought to you by Tiki Bikini Hut at Junkanoo Beach. Great food, cool tropical drinks, and family fun in the sun. And we are back. Welcome back to GPS, Global Paradigm Shift on Global 99.5 FM. Michelle Malcolm in your company on this beautiful Monday afternoon. This is a masterclass Monday on the Constitution of the Bahamas with Professor Sidney MacArthur Walter Thompson. Here's how you can become involved in the show. The telephone numbers to call are 3260271, 3260271, 3260272, 3260272. The WhatsApp line for messages and calls is 801-0271. That's 801-0271. We're streaming live on Facebook on the official Michelle Malcolm and Global 99.5 FM pages. Please like and share the show if you haven't already done so. Also coming to you live on rumble.com. Look for Global Paradigm Shift, all one word, no spaces in between. We're on Cable Bahamas, channel 974, and you can download the Global 99.5 FM app to your smart device and take us with you 24/7. Last but not least, welcome to all of you tuned in by way of radio from here in Providence, Grand Bahama, across the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, and around the world. Welcome, welcome, welcome to all of you who have tuned in to the show. Okay, so we're talking today with Professor Sidney MacArthur Walter Thompson as we look at the Constitution of the Bahamas. Last week, we picked up at Chapter 3 of the Constitution, which deals specifically with protection of fundamental rights and freedoms of the individual. And last week, we covered Article 15 under Chapter 3. So now we're going to turn our attention to Article 16 of Chapter 3 of the Constitution. 16.1 says, no person shall be deprived intentionally of his life, save in execution of the sentence of a court in respect of a criminal offense of which he has been convicted. I ain't gonna go no further, Professor. Let's deal with that, because right now,
That's a serious one.
Boy,
that is a very serious one. And I'm glad it's entrenched in the Constitution, because we have so many violations of that in our country today.
Mm-hmm.
And we have to take these things very seriously. And I told someone, I said, when we come to freedoms of the individual, you're going to see some powerful things in this Constitution, which is designed to protect you. That's why we have this Constitution. Just imagine we didn't have it. What kind of further chaos we will have in the country.
That's a scary
thought.
But
the problem is the Bahamian people do not fully understand the Constitution. And it's my job to assist the Bahamian people to understand this most complex document. I know the language sometimes, and it is kind of off, but that's how they wrote it, and it has to be stripped apart. But no, being deprived of your freedoms is a serious thing. And I heard some people say on the air, they don't mind what the government may do. They just want to get this crime under control. Now, see, you got to be careful what you say in relation to criminal activity, because you have some people who are committing crimes in the country. It is the duty of the government of the Bahamas to deal with those individuals. That's point number one. Point number two, you have the overwhelming majority of your people who are primarily law-abiding in the country. Their interest has to be protected. And we shouldn't allow criminally minded people to take advantage of the majority of the people in the country. So the government has a responsibility to deal with those who run afoul of the law. Now, I also heard that the government is asking or looking to the point where they're going to put in some very stringent things which may infringe on the constitutional rights of the Bahamian people. And I said on another show, I think it was today, I'm not going to go along with anything where you are going to infringe on entrenched constitutional rights and freedoms. I mean, there's one right now talking about freedom of the individual. There are quite a number of articles for that. The point is, as I understand the law, we have legislation right now in place that the government of the Bahamas can use to deal with criminal activity. You do not willy-nilly give up your entrenched constitutional rights because somebody say we need to do that in order to deal with crime. That's not necessarily true. Yes, you deal with criminals who violate the law, but what about those who are law-abiding? What kind of protection do they have? That's why you have the Constitution. And it's because of the Constitution it controls and restrains a government. People don't seem to understand that. You can't say just let them do any and everything. You're going to be like Sudan. That's what happens now.
So let's get back to 16:1. I want us to break this down. It says, no person shall be deprived intentionally of his life, save in execution of the sentence of a court in respect of a criminal offense of which he has been convicted.
Yes. In other words, there's an exception there to the point where he should not be deprived of his life willy-nilly at the expense of the government or anybody else for that matter.
So is this referring to capital punishment?
That's a good question that you asked. I'm glad you asked that too. The point is, and when you talk about capital punishment, of course, that is a state-sanctioned action.
Right.
But you have people out there who are doing things, taking the people's lives at their own whim and fancy. Right. That certainly is not according to law. Mm-hmm. Where a person has been convicted in a court for a particular offense, then judgment has to be carried out. Because see, if you have a society where there's no judgment for offenders who violate the law, then you're going to have more problems in the country. It doesn't necessarily mean that capital punishment should not be carried out. But what it does mean is that the court makes a determination. I remember now the court could make an unconstitutional ruling. I mentioned that in the last show I was on. Mm-hmm. So you have the right to appeal that particular ruling. But where there's hardcore evidence to show that the court has made the right decision, well, then that's fine. You just allow it to go through. Because the court is responsible for in making sure that the sentences are carried out, the punishment is carried out, and that's why you have the judiciary, where there's a dispute between two or more parties, or two parties in particular, then that goes before the court, and the court has to make a determination. But we want to make sure that the court is just and fair on both sides. So it doesn't give the person any right to take matters into their own hand. That's why you have the legal system. People are not always satisfied. But I think it is important that whoever represents them ought to explain to them what the situation is. That's why you have legal counsel. But unfortunately, in too many cases, that's not happening, because you could see by the crime wave that we have, that ain't happening. Because people are feeling now that they have been unfairly treated by the court, unfairly treated by the law.
We have
So
a
they
caller
take
on the
matters.
line, Professor. Let's go to the caller. Caller,
Yes,
welcome
ma'am.
to GPS.
Yes, thank you so much, Ms. Malcolm. Excellent show you're having. Several points prompted me to call, even though my power cord and was introduced, so I'll have to be brief. Professor Thompson points out that the judiciary is an untapped resource that the Bahamian people have not quite made use of. We've said things like they're crooked and it ain't going to work, but that's from the devil. The court is mandated to follow the rule of law. So once the case is properly presented, the courts have no choice. And if they fail on this end, we have another court of appeal all the way in England. And if that fails, there's the World Court, the International Court of Justice. So we've been lazy. And in the protection of this very valuable piece of real estate, we're going to have to become very, very active in preserving it. I want to point your attention to the people of Ghana, I believe, the African nation that was supposed to send in 1,000 troops to Haiti. Well, the opposition in that nation took the matter to court, and they got an injunction preventing the government from sending the citizens. Here's the reason. There's some $600 million in the pool for the defense of Haiti. So, it's not beyond the government to sell off 1,000 people for a piece of 600 million. Not unlike governments at all. That's why you have courts. The courts are there to defend the people against any incursion from the government or criminals. That's what it's there for, to protect us. And that Constitution is our biggest protection at the moment, because we have people who are making decisions for another nation. I heard the Minister of Social Services say the other day, anyone that's been had their houses pushed down, come see social services. Well, there are Bahamians who can't get a friggin' check. And there's a woman who left her children unattended, not a Bahamian. They put her in jail for 1 year, which we must pay for. And they put the children somewhere where the Bahamian people have to pay for. There's something wrong when the people you've elected, you didn't check their bloodlines, and they have a greater interest in another nation's business. And that nation, their numbers are like 10 million. We can't afford it. So we're going to have to implore the courts to protect the Bahamian people's interest in their own nation. It's going to be given away, trampled upon. And even this crime situation, it is not really a Bahamian problem. Ask Mr. Carlos Reed. He should know. God bless you, Miss Malcolm.
Thanks for calling.
Yes, the caller made some very interesting remarks. And that's why I've been telling them all along. You must always watch what the government of the Bahamas is doing. Is it acting in your best interests in its decision-making process? And if it is not, and I've shown some examples that it isn't, then there's a cause of action to take. And we have been lax and lazy in being able to do anything. People complain, and I'm not saying you shouldn't complain about things, but there's more to that we could do. Like one caller said in the last show, I think it was at the show before that, we won't go that far. What you mean you don't want to go that far? Are you interested in protecting this country? You're interested in protecting your freedoms, rights, freedoms, and privilege that my mother and father fought so hard for? For me to just roll over and let people walk on me? The answer is no. We need Bahamian people to get serious about the Constitution of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, because we have not taken appropriate legal action against the government of the Bahamas for the things that they are doing that are wrong. And it's been going on constantly for the last 50 plus years. This ain't just started yesterday. And so we have to look at this. What kind of country are we running? We got all kinds of strangers, foreigners, aliens, outsiders in this place. And Bahamian citizens are suffering. And then you have those who have been purporting to be Bahamian, where the man has signed one piece of paper and say they're now citizens of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, contrary to the Constitution. These things are serious. And we see the numbers keep piling up. And we're just sitting back and not say to the government, no, you're wrong on this point. You have to change that. We're not actively doing that. Now, there are some who are working on some things, but our people need to wake up before it is too late. Because we're going to be overrun by strangers, because they are those who are interested in promoting those particular personalities and turning the Bahamas into something else, which would be contrary to the Constitution.
Okay. All right.
We have to work on that.
Okay. So I want us to stay focused.
No, we are focused, Ms. Malcolm.
No, I know, but we keep sort of veering back to the Nationality Act and immigration, etc.
Yeah, but then, Ms. Malcolm, you heard what the caller said.
Yes.
Right? And we have to respond to what the caller is saying.
No, I agree with that. I'm just saying, though, we have to, while we have to respond, we also have to keep on track in terms of where we're trying to go as to where we are within the Constitution at this time.
Okay, fair enough.
And I do believe that this particular article that we're looking at right now, 16, the timing couldn't have been more perfect because we see all of this carnage happening on our streets.
Yes, ma'am.
And people are taking people's lives willy-nilly like it's nothing.
That is correct.
If we look at 16.1, which we just covered, it says, no person shall be deprived intentionally of his life, save in execution of the sentence of a court in respect of a criminal offense of which he has been convicted. Now, we have to look at 16.2 because 16.2 outlines circumstances where it is justified, for want of a better word, to take another person's life. And I want you to break this down for us, please. 16.2 says, a person shall not be regarded as having been deprived of his life in contravention of this article if he dies as a result of the use to such extent and in such circumstances are permitted by law of such force as is reasonably justifiable, A, for the defense of any person from violence or for the defense of property. Now, let me stick a pin in that. So that means that if you are defending yourself, help me understand this. Or if you, I think in America, they have, in some states in America, they have a law called what is it called? The stand your ground or something like that, where you have a right to defend yourself or to defend your property against somebody who is
trying to deprive you of it.
Right. So is that what this is saying?
Yes, it is. You have a right to defend yourself. You have the right to defend your life. You have a right to defend your family. You have a right to defend your property.
Okay. So
because remember now, it's talking about justification. In other words, a person could lose his life because he invades somebody's place and tries to do something that is unlawful.
Right.
And you happen to take the life of that particular person under that particular situation. That's a whole horse of a different color. That's not where you're going out willy-nilly, like how it is in the streets now, where the woman was walking along and just shot to death in the street and left there. That's a whole different situation altogether. So the Constitution has to put in place scenarios where it is reasonably, and you will find this word in there all the time, reasonably justifiable. under the circumstances. And if you don't have to do it, then you don't necessarily have to do it. But the point is, you may be in a situation where your very life is threatened by this particular person or persons, as the case may be. And unfortunately, that has been happening too much now in this country.
Mm-hmm.
So as a law-abiding citizen, you have a right to protect yourself and the interests of your property and the interests of your family in the event something comes up and you have to deal with this particular situation. Because you never know what you're going to meet. Like I always tell people, never know what you're going to meet today or even this afternoon. You just don't know. But you can walk into it. It could just happen all of a sudden, and the Constitution is right there to back you up. But this willy-nilly taking people's lives and doing and acting as you please, contrary to law, that's not allowed at all.
So let me
there's
ask
a
you something. This is getting a bit technical based on the explanation that you just gave. Okay, so if somebody is breaking into your home and you decide to stand your ground and defend your home against that person, and the person dies as a result of your defense of your home, what is your legal standing if the method by which you used to take that person's life is not legal? For instance, in other words, if you have an illegal firearm in your house and somebody breaks into your house and is threatening your life, your family's life, they're threatening to harm your children, your spouse or whatever, and you take that illegal weapon and you defend yourself with that illegal weapon, does the Constitution give you any kind of recourse for that method of self-defense because even though you were using a method that is not necessarily legal?
Okay, I'm glad you asked that question. Now read that article again, that portion of the article. The answer is right there.
Okay, so 16(2) says, a person shall not be regarded as having been deprived of his life in contravention of this article if he dies as a result of the use to such extent and in such circumstances as are permitted by law of such force as is reasonably justifiable, A, for the defense of any person from violence or for the defense of property.
Yes. Okay, and you asked about the illegal firearm that may be around, right? Of course, you should not have any illegal firearm if you're a law-abiding citizen.
Right.
But let's say he does it. And then they come back to find out that this was an illegal firearm in the man's house. Mm-hmm. And that may be the only thing nearby him. So what is he supposed to do? What is more important? The saving of his life? Or must he just allow this particular person, provided he has the opportunity to do so, to just take out his family, take over his property, and do and act as they please? I think it would have to be a judgment made by the court in that particular matter with the illegal firearm. Because when it comes to life, life is more important than a piece of weapon on the side of the place. Hmm. See, the Constitution is speaking specifically to you protecting yourself and using the necessary force that is justifiable in protecting your property, in protecting yourself, in protecting your family. That's paramount number one. That's priority. And, you know, you say it could get technical, but see, what we need to do is, what does the Constitution say? It didn't say anything specifically right there about an illegal firearm, because the Constitution doesn't work that way. It gives you the right to protect yourself, your property, your family.
Right.
And in a crunch situation like that, you have to do what is lawful, yes, in the particular situation. And when it comes to your life is far more important the life of yourself, your family, and also to protect your property.
So somebody just put in our WhatsApp chat, in our Facebook chat, that the only thing that they would be able to charge that person with is the possession of an illegal firearm.
Well, that is true. That's a statute law, and I say the court would have to make a determination, because if I have it there and I have to use it, I'll use it, because it's your life or theirs. It's just that simple. It's a crunch situation that you're caught in. That's why I am so delighted the way how the Constitution puts these things, because there can be circumstances that can occur which puts you in a quandary, and you have to say, but what am I supposed to be doing? You have a right to protect your life and your property and your family. The Constitution spells it out very clearly. So in the event he loses his life in that particular situation, that is the person offending you, that's a whole different situation altogether. And so the matter has to be looked at in light of the circumstances that is written in the Constitution. Now, the legal firearm, well, I understand that too. But then, like I said, that comes under statute law.
Right. Okay, we have to take a break. We're going to continue going through the Constitution on the other side of the break with Professor Sidney MacArthur, Walter Thompson. So please stick around, and so we can learn more about our rights and responsibilities as outlined in the Constitution. We'll be back with this Masterclass Monday after this break. Stay with us.
Global Paradigm Shift will return after this.
Your body's immune system is under constant pressure from things like stress, lack of exercise, and toxins in the environment. It's crucial to be proactive and support your immune system with the nutrients it needs to function effectively. But it's often hard to get these nutrients from food alone. Introducing fast-acting Zinc Plus Immune Support by Longevity. Unlike zinc-only supplements, Zinc Plus Immune Support builds on the proven power of zinc and adds complementary nutrients to give your immune system extra support. Vitamin D helps balance the effects of zinc, while our proprietary blend of natural fruit and root extracts provides the extra help your immune system needs to work against daily stressors. And we've included Longevity's exclusive plant-derived minerals to give your body the minerals it needs, but can't get from food alone. And because Zinc Plus Immune Support is delivered in a great-tasting, sugar-free, berry-flavored lozenge, it encourages quicker absorption of all these nutrients into your body. Zinc Plus Immune Support. Zinc plus the extra support your body needs to promote a healthy immune system. To learn more, contact your Longevity associate.
Welcome to Sunshine Auto, the hardest place on the planet for rims, paints, and tires.
We are your auto superstore for rims, Lexani, Azaras, Trueform, Western, Lux, Fuel, Trackline, Tough, Rough Racing, Velocity, Mud, All-Terrain, and low-profile tires. Cars, homes, and commercial window tinting. At Sunshine Auto, we put God first and customer is king.
Blessed love.
It's gotten harder and harder to get your daily requirement of vital nutrients from food alone. Without additional vitamin and nutrient support, your health and well-being can suffer drastically. That's why Z-Radical was specifically formulated. It combines a blend of antioxidant-rich vitamins, minerals, and botanicals with the protective powers of fucoidan to help fill the gaps from lack of nutrients in your foods. The core of Z-Radical is fucoidan, a naturally occurring polysaccharide that helps stimulate immune reaction, protecting you against inflammation and oxidative stress. We harvest this powerful mineral-rich nutrient from brown seaweed, harvested only from the world's most pristine ocean waters to ensure the purest quality. It's then extracted using cold process technology to ensure maximum levels of bioavailability. Then we add essential vitamins that help to protect your cardiovascular and nervous systems and are crucial for optimal immune and neurological function. Z-Radical also includes a proprietary blend of delicious antioxidant-rich fruits and berries. This great-tasting combination helps your body combat free radical imbalances that can contribute to a variety of degenerative conditions like arthritis and heart disease. Z-Radical. Experience the power of fucoidan with antioxidant-rich berries, 8 essential vitamins, and more to provide you with potent health benefits. To learn more, contact your Longevity associate.
And we are back. Welcome back to GPS, Global Paradigm Shift on Global 99.5 FM. Michelle Malcolm here in your company with Professor Sidney MacArthur Walter Thompson on this Masterclass Monday as we look at the Constitution of the Bahamas. The telephone numbers to call are 3260271, 3260271, 3260272, 3260272, and the WhatsApp line for messages and calls is 801-0271. That's 801-0271. We're streaming live on Facebook on the official Michelle Malcolm and Global 99.5 FM pages. Please like and share the show if you haven't already done so. Also coming to you live on rumble.com. Look for Global Paradigm Shift, all one word, no spaces in between. We're on Cable Bahamas, channel 974, and you can download the Global 99.5 FM app to your smart device. Carriers with you that way. Last but not least, welcome to all of you tuned in by way of radio. And a huge welcome to all of you listening from outside the country. We are especially grateful for your presence here. Okay, so talking to Professor Sidney MacArthur Walter Thompson, as we do every Monday around these parts. This is what we call a Masterclass Monday on the Constitution of the Bahamas. And we are in the midst of looking at Article 16 of the Constitution. Article 16 falls under Chapter 3, which deals with the protection and fundamental rights and freedoms of the individual. And considering all of the murders that we have been dealing with and since January 1, in particular, this section of the Constitution that we're looking at right now, boy, the timing couldn't have been better in terms of helping us to understand what our rights and responsibilities are as it relates to the protection of your rights to life. If we look back at 16.2, it says 16.2b. Remember now, 16.2 says a person shall not be regarded as having been deprived of his life in contravention of this article if he dies as a result of the use to such extent and in such circumstances as are permitted by law of such force as is reasonably justifiable. B, in order to effect a lawful arrest or to prevent the escape of a person lawfully detained.
Yes.
Break that down for us, please, Professor.
Yeah, see, you may have to, a person being lawfully detained, well, that comes under the police.
Right.
But then a situation may arise where you may have to make a citizen's arrest in dealing with this particular situation. Okay, where the circumstances may warrant it, because the person will try to escape. You know, everybody wants to run into the dark, like when the woman was shot in the street. They just jump in their car and then went running away. That's the way criminals act all the time. They don't want anyone to know who they are and the damage that has been done. And so you have people who are hating. So there are times when you may have to restrain an individual under the circumstances and turn that person over to the lawful authorities so that that person could be dealt with. Now, you have to make a judgment as to whether you can do that, or even with the assistance of someone else to help you to do it. You will find that most people will say, well, they'll wait for the police to come. Sometimes the police may not come in time. And while you're waiting, and I'm not saying you shouldn't wait for them, but if it is within your power to do so, and you can restrain the person, tie the person down, or whatever, I think you should do so to make sure that that person is brought before the courts, before the law, to be dealt with according to law. Now, you notice that the terminology reasonably justifiable. You'll find things like that said in the Constitution, because the Constitution wants to be reasonably with everybody in these freedoms of the individual. And also it can be justified, meaning the action that you take is reasonably justifiable. So you find that terminology in the law. So in other words, it can't be a situation where you have a person who just take it upon themselves, I can do this, I can do that. No. There are certain things you have to do which would be reasonably justifiable under the supreme law of the country and even under the statute law. And I think we need to take that into consideration when we are about to do something. Is it reasonably justifiable? And the police ought to ask themselves too, because it applies to them too.
I was about to ask you,
as
it relates to, because we often hear persons cry of police brutality and say, oh, the police didn't have to do this to that person and they didn't. And then the police will come back and say, well, I was fearful for my life, or, you know what I mean, that this was a justifiable action. But this does not, this particular article of the Constitution does not give the police or any other individual the right to just take another person's life without, like you said, justification. Correct?
Yes. No, you're correct. See, that's why you have the word reasonably justifiable or reasonably justified. In other words, what the Constitution is saying is we are not going to allow anyone to just willingly take somebody's life and get away with it. It has to be a justifiable cause why the life was taken. And it has to be reasonable, justifiable in the situation, the circumstances. So you're going to find that kind of terminology throughout the Constitution. Because you just can't have the police, and people have complained about the police. The police is not above the law. These same freedoms of the individual apply to them too, whether they are carrying out the law or not. Because they may be caught in a situation where they might be on the other side, then what? So the point is that they do not have any superior authority above what is stated in the Constitution. And even whatever guidelines they have, and we may have to look at some of these things that are being done, because you hear a lot of people complaining about police brutality. Is it true? Is it false? Is it according to constitutional law, the actions they take? And you would hear the term where they say, I was in fear of my life. Yes, he might be in fear of his life. But was it reasonably justifiable? And then you have to have the investigation. People get in there and they do their investigations and find out the facts of the matter. And you will find in some cases where the court determined that it was not reasonably justifiable. So that takes a process of time when it comes to that particular situation. So they are not, well then now when the person is dead, well, you can't bring them back. That's another thing. Okay, so what I try to get people to understand is when you are, well, I'll use myself an example. Even though I may know the police officer in question is acting unconstitutionally and he has this weapon in his hand, I ain't got nothing to defend myself. I will try as best as I possibly can to be reasonable with him, but he may be unreasonable. Oh, I'm the police. I got this authority. So sometimes, for the sake of peace, you have to allow them to do what they think. Now, you got to save your life because a dead man can't talk, right? So what I suggest is that work along with them to the point where when you have the opportunity to deal with it, then you do so. Because a dead man can't talk. And you may find, and there has been cases that have been brought before the courts where police officers, they committed some acts which were not reasonably justifiable. But the act was done. Now you have a dead body on your hand. So I would rather be alive, even though they might take advantage of me at that particular point. You could always deal with that. So it's a matter of making a sound decision and a good judgment under the circumstances. And so one has to exercise as a citizen your constitutional rights, yes. But there are times you may become across an officer who may just be stubborn. Don't know nothing about constitutional law. But yet he got this uniform on, so he's an officer of the law.
We have a question that's coming in on Facebook. This question is from Eldridge, and his question is: if a criminal breaks into your home and he sees you holding a firearm at him, if he decides to try to run back out of the home and the owner still shoots at him, will the owner of the home be in trouble?
Let me hear that last part again before I answer that.
Okay.
What do you say?
If a criminal breaks in your home,
yes,
sees you holding a firearm at him, and decides to try to run back out of the home, if the owner still shoots at him, will the owner of the home be in trouble? Let's say if the person is breaking into your house, he realized now that was a mistake because he see you holding a weapon. He decides to retreat and try to run. And there was actually a case like this several years ago on the Eastern Road, where a young man was breaking into a house, and the owner of the house chased that young man, not just out of the house, but allegedly out of the yard and down the street, and shot him dead.
I know about that.
Yeah,
now,
that was a serious case.
I'm glad you brought that up, because I was thinking the same thing. The question is, the Constitution says, is it reasonably justifiable? That's the question. Mm-hmm. The actions of the homeowner, were the actions of the homeowner reasonably justifiable? That's why I'm glad that the text sent that in like that. Because these are questions that people want answers to, and the Constitution is there to give you the answers. But if he retreats and he goes out of the yard, why would you want to shoot him?
What can you remember what came of that case? I think that person who shot him got away with that, eh?
But he got away with it, yes.
Okay,
no, you're quite right. Got away with
that raises the question.
Yeah, but go ahead. Let me let you go.
Hold on now. I can be the devil's advocate today. That raises the question. Is this Constitution only workable for you if you're in a certain class? Because the argument was the person who killed that would-be intruder was, somebody of a lighter hue living in the Eastern Road, and, of a certain, class, and they got away with that.
Yeah, because, see, even if the person got away with it, right? That doesn't necessarily make it right. Okay. And people would ask questions like that. I mean, when you see persons who are to be dealing with the law, so you got to understand these personalities who may do things that are not reasonably justifiable, and when they appear before the system,
all you need is a good lawyer.
The system may not even be reasonably justifiable in their actions. We have that. You're dealing with human beings. You're dealing with carnal nature. But that does not change the tenor of the Constitution. Mm-hmm. I tell people this all the time. What does the law say? Do you see when I asked you to read that again? Because the answer was right there when you asked me the question about the firearm.
Right.
What does the Constitution say? And so in the case with that particular situation, I know very well, what the homeowner did was wrong. Yes, he may have gotten away with it and was not punished for it, Does that make it right? The answer is no.
Okay.
Still doesn't make it right.
Okay.
So I'm happy that, that was brought, because, people will think back to these, and it's good when you consider these things. I always go and say, what does the Constitution say? Because the court could make a bad ruling, a very bad judgment. We've seen it happen over and repeatedly. So you're dealing with human beings, and, they may be thinking one thing, and the Constitution is saying, this is the way you should go, and they decide, for whatever reason, to act differently, and then people wonder, well, maybe, who is the law for? Is it for people of a certain hue? Is it for people of a certain class? They could get away with doing things. The law is for everybody. The Constitution doesn't specifically say because you're a particular class, but that's the perception people have in their head. I can't blame people for asking questions. I like these kind of questions. These are good questions to ask, because it means you're now thinking, which simply means we've got to correct these kinks in the system. It's just as simple as that. Now, a man has lost his life, and you can't bring him back. And the person got away with the crap. And then others would want to follow that same trend, unfortunately, and believe they should get away with the nonsense too. I simply said you were stealing 50 years ago, and you have been continually stealing. Does it mean now you are free? You're not to be punished when you're caught? So these are things that people would ask, and you got to go back to the Constitution. What does the Constitution say? Because the Constitution is the final authority in the country, not the word of the judge. When I said that on the other show, the fellow got vexed. The judge could be dead wrong. The judge could come up with his own mind thinking, and he makes an unconstitutional ruling. That doesn't make it right. It's just that he had some figmentation in his head, and he decided he can rule this way, but it's unconstitutional. So we have to challenge it. We have to question it. So I think when people start to think like that, then we will have a better understanding of how we ought to behave, not to follow the actions of that particular homeowner, but to do what is reasonably justifiable in the particular situation. That's what the Constitution says. Now, if the ruling doesn't come out from the particular personality who is on the bench at that particular time, that's a different kettle of fish altogether. But those things happen and people question it. And the unfortunate thing about that kind of thing is people tend to look at the negativity of the particular personality instead of looking at what the law says and say, you know something, we need to correct these kinks in the system. And we have those kinks in the system today. We got to correct them.
Okay, we have a comment on Facebook from Patricia, who says that at the time of that case where the homeowner shot the housebreaker outside of his property, a guilty verdict back then demanded the death penalty. Since that case, the Privy Council ruled that the death penalty should not be applied in every circumstance.
Notice what you just said. The death penalty ought not to be applied in every circumstance. Now, I think they have, and I've got to go deep into this now, with another ruling that they made about the worst of the worst. All right? And I think these things need to be openly discussed in our country, and for people to have a clearer understanding of these rulings. See, we have the ruling in the Darcy Ryan case. We have the ruling on the Jean Rooney case. We have the ruling where the Privy Council made a decision, the worst of the worst, in the particular case where this particular individual brutally murdered a young girl, a young woman. And they talked, well, that person didn't get, I don't think that person got the death penalty. And they talked about the worst of the worst. Now, I don't think we have dealt with that as yet in the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. And see, these things allowed to sit because we don't put pressure on our elected personalities. That's our problem. So they could get away with it, and do and act as they please. And that's why we have a multitude of problems that continue to hurt the Bahamian people. Now, we will talk in our little private circle, but they won't come out in the public eye. Would do. Because what I say publicly, I say it privately. Same thing. So the point is that we have to look at things objectively. And I always ask the question when I hear the Prime Minister speak, is he constitutionally sound? Yes or no? And if he's not constitutionally sound, then it's null and void. It may be his opinion. If he says he's expressing an opinion, I ain't got to ask him nothing about that. But if it's being purported to be as if it is law, now I got a big problem with that. So I'm going to be watching him very closely and his government to see how they're going to deal with this crime issue. Because there are some very specific things that the government of the Bahamas and the people of the Bahamas ought to do in dealing with this criminal element in our country. So it takes the cooperation of the private citizens, it takes the cooperation of the police force, it takes the cooperation of the government. Okay. So we can't keep warring at each other. And in fact, what we have is we have these wars keep going on, and we keep knocking one another and throwing down one another instead of looking at the situation, and we got more and more people dying. And at the end of the day, nothing has been achieved. And that's why when I come on Mondays, I come with the express purpose of explaining in simple, basic, fundamental language that which is, and as we are on this Article 16, reasonably justifiable for your actions.
Okay, let's go back to the article. 16C.
Yes, ma'am.
For the purpose of suppressing a riot, insurrection, or mutiny. So in other words, if a person is about to, I want to read this again. For the purpose of suppressing a riot, insurrection, or mutiny.
Yes.
So explain that for us. In other words, if somebody has started a riot or has instigated a riot and you're trying to suppress that riot and that person loses their life in the incidents of you trying to suppress the riot, then according to the Constitution, you acted justifiably in that case. So you're talking about suppressing a riot or insurrection or mutiny. Explain that, please.
Okay, I'm glad that the Constitution speaks to that, because see, when you look at the Magistrates Act, even justices of the peace have the authority to suppress riots or insurrections, as the case may be, and also it applies to private citizen. But the point is that you call in the authorities to assist you and help you, because sometimes and they're supposed to obey, the Magistrate Act says very clearly the police are supposed to obey the justice of the peace. My sister pointed that out to me, the other day. And I said, since I've been a justice of the peace for the past 32 years, I said that law was right there. And I knew it all the time. But there are times when you do not get the kind of cooperation you need from the authorities to suppress something, because it takes more than one person to put down a riot or suppress something that is boiling, that could get out of control. I believe a lot of these things can be stopped if we have the kind of connection in our communities and we see it building up. Because a lot of times I have to go out and stop a lot of things. The police never show up. But the people in the community, when you stand there and you're an authority figure, they show deference to you. They show respect to you. Now, this is the Bahamian people now. We have our problems, we have our weaknesses, we have our shortcomings. But I've learned over the past 32 years plus that when someone, authority figure, is respected in that community, the people tend to listen to you. That has happened over and over and over and over again. Now you could quell things. They're having this big row here. And as long as you appear on the scene and you talk to them, it doesn't mean you rough them up and carry on back. I'm not talking about that at all. But it's how you handle people. So a lot of these things that happen in these communities with all these killings and shootings and knifing and stabbing and all of that, a lot of that could be avoided. But we have to know how to handle the people in the community, even if the police don't show up. And in my case, they don't show up. Many times when you call them, they don't show up. So how are you supposed to deal with it? You have to use wisdom and understanding. See, I know the Bahamian people. And I know when we have strangers and foreigners and aliens and outsiders in our midst, pretending to be Bahamian, that's a different kettle of fish altogether. But when the justice of the peace calls the police in, they are supposed to obey you in that particular situation. That's in the Magistrates Act. So that ties right in with the statute law. So there are times when you have to call them, but like I said, the time they just don't show up. And what do you do then when they don't show up? You got trouble on your hand. So you have to do the best that you can to quell people, to talk sense to them. And like I said, you'll find, generally speaking, in my 32 years plus experience, they would respect it and follow your instructions.
But in the event that somebody loses their life as the instigator of that insurrection or riot or mutiny, then the Constitution allows for that to be legal. I hate to put it that way, but
no, but whatever, I wouldn't say you should hate to put it that way. Whatever the Constitution says is legal. There's nothing unlawful in this Constitution.
Yeah, I get that.
Nothing at all. So even though a person may lose their life in a riot, a suppression, or whatever, as you are going about it, that could happen. That could happen. Now, you know, the Constitution says specifically what is what? Reasonably justifiable. Don't ever forget that now. You can see that term keep coming up all the time. Because the Constitution wants people to be reasonable, one, and your actions must be what? Justifiable under the particular situations. That's why I tell people every word in this document is important, you know. Just like the Holy Bible. The Holy Bible is always right. It is never, ever wrong. The Constitution is always right. It is never, ever wrong. And Bahamians don't ever forget that. Now, them other things with them fellas right, they could be wrong. But the Constitution is never wrong. Yes, ma'am.
We have to take a break. Let's take a break.
I want to expand on that when we get back.
Pardon me?
I want to expand on that when we get back.
Expand on what?
No, what we were discussing in this particular section. Yeah, okay.
All right. So we'll be back after these words from our sponsors. Stay with us. This is GPS.
Global Paradigm Shift will return after this.
At Lee Air, safety is our #1 priority. Flying since 1996, we offer scheduled flights into Fresh Creek and Mangrove Key Andros and Great Harbor Key, Berry Island, twice daily, 7 days a week. Affordable charter services are also available to anywhere in the Bahamas and the Caribbean. Lee Air Charter Services. Call 225-3267, 702-7127, or 322-1317 for reservations.
Understanding your microbiome, also known as your gut ecosystem, can change everything you thought you knew about nutrition, digestion, immunity, and metabolism. Keeping your gut ecosystem healthy and balanced is essential. Ultimate Microbiome by Longevity was specifically formulated to optimize this ecosystem. It provides the advanced support your gut needs through prebiotic, probiotic, and postbiotic supplementation. Our unique blend of probiotics includes Lactobacillus and Plantarum, healthy bacteria that can help prevent harmful bacteria from taking over your gut. Increasing your gut's population of beneficial bacteria creates a more balanced gut microbiome, which has been shown to aid in weight loss, skin health, sleep, mood, and may even help with seasonal allergies. Ultimate Microbiome also promotes the production of postbiotics. Postbiotics are key to help regulate your gastrointestinal health. To enhance digestion, Digizyme Multi-Enzyme Complex, a blend of 5 specific enzymes, has been added to Ultimate Microbiome. It can help break down food so your body can better absorb nutrients. Plus, we've added our proprietary I-26 hyperimmune egg powder to aid in the elimination of disease-causing gut bacteria and help your body balance its immune response. Ultimate Microbiome, the scientific, proprietary, and holistic approach to gut health that helps optimize your body's entire gut ecosystem. To learn more, contact your longevity associate.
For all your building needs, it's Carib Construction and Project Management on Gladstone Road. We build it all: schools, homes, hotels, and more, including structures requiring a Phase 3 electrical contractor. We also provide project management services. The first step towards your dream building begins at Carib Construction and Project Management. Call us at 376-1556 or 341-4466.
One of the things I love about the mailboat is their relationship with Bahamas Air. I can earn travel points on my international freight and redeem them when I fly.
For me, online shopping is easy with Mailboat's U.S. addresses and regular freight delivery to Nassau. Plus, I can always prepay customs and freight, and they always notify me when my package arrives.
Yeah, a lot of people think the Mailboat is just for shipping, but they also offer a safe and secure storage facility at affordable rates, all in a central, convenient location.
We also offer passenger service into Freeport multiple times per week with a seating capacity of over 450 persons. With family movies on large screens, one hot meal included, and on-board lounge for snacks and soft drinks. We're the Mailboat. We're bridging people, products, and places.
Executive Printers is your one-stop shop for all your branding and customization needs. Letterheads, envelopes, business cards, invoices, share and gift certificates, rubber stamps, vouchers, funeral programs, brochures, flyers, banners, and promotional items like mugs, water bottles, mouse pads, and key rings, all with personable service and great quality. No project is too small or too large. For great turnaround and competitive pricing, make an executive decision. Call us at 393-5011.
And we are back. Welcome back to GPS, Global Paradigm Shift on Global 99.5 FM. Michelle Malcolm here along with Professor Sidney MacArthur, Walter Thompson, talking about the Constitution of the Bahamas on this Masterclass Monday. Call us at 326-0271, 326-0271, 326-0272, 326-0272. The WhatsApp line is 801-0271, and you can either call us or send us a message on that WhatsApp line. Coming to you live on Facebook on the official Michelle Malcolm and Global 99.5 FM pages. Like and share the show if you haven't already done so. Let everybody know we're on the air talking about the Constitution. You can also catch us on rumble.com. That's rumble.com. Look for Global Paradigm Shift, all one word, no spaces in between. We're coming to you on Cable Bahamas, Channel 974, and you can download the Global 99.5 FM app and carry us with you 24/7. Last but not least, welcome to everybody who is tuned in by way of radio. And I want to say thank you to all of you who are tuned in, whatever means you're tuned in, whether it's from here in New Providence, Grand Bahama, throughout the country, or those of you who are tuned in from outside the Bahamas. A special welcome to you all. Okay, so we are now talking about Article 16 in the Constitution. Again, Article 16 falls under Chapter 3, which deals with the protection and fundamental rights and freedoms of the individual. And prior to the break,
Yes.
Professor, you said you wanted to expand on an idea.
Yes, I want to read that last part in 16.
16C you're talking about?
Yes,
Or,
yes. Yes,
yeah,
ma'am. That's
okay.
correct.
So 16C says, for the purpose of suppressing a riot, insurrection, or mutiny.
Okay. Now, let me just say this. In a lot of our communities, they're, closely knit in the sense that people live very close to each other. And you're going to find that because of the relationships that you may have with others in your community, it can be very difficult sometimes to get people to cooperate and work with each other. But I think when you look at the Constitution was designed for people who could be reasonable and who could act responsibly. When you go back to the vision and purpose of this Constitution, which is in the preamble, see, everything ties in. And in the preamble, it talks about the fundamental rights and freedoms of the individual, the same chapter 3 that we are discussing now. And so I'm saying that we have to set, those of us who know better, have to set a proper example. A lot of these things that you see flaring up now, where people are stabbed and shot and murdered, I'm not talking about people who may be accidentally killed. That's a different situation altogether. But where you have this animosity and hatred that has been building up over a period of time, because we as family members, we keep hiding things. We do not be upfront and honest with ourselves. We say everything is okay when it's not. And we got some funny things going on. We have to be honest and upfront. We could avoid having a whole lot of these things happening, which is spelled out in the Constitution. And you won't have to get to the point where you have to have mutiny, insurrection, and suppressing of riots and that sort of thing. But if the rate keep going the way we are now, and you keep having all of this criminal activity going on, and nothing is done to suppress it, to stop it, then it's going to spill over and will get even worse. And I'm afraid that, we in the Bahamas, I'm delighted that we have this Constitution. It has these entrenched freedoms, rights, and privileges that we are not utilizing at all. And as one caller said, we don't utilize the courts. Now, if we know how to behave and conduct ourselves, we can have less court activity. But there are times when you have to take matters before the court, as we are doing now, because it's a situation that demands it. And even today now, with all this nonsense going on, first you try to see if you could settle it one-to-one, as the Bible tells you to do. Go and talk to your neighbor if you can. And then if the neighbor doesn't hear you, then you take one or two others, independent, partial-minded persons, who are not going to take side with you or side with the other person. And sometimes it's difficult to find people like that. But because they're family related, they take up for that particular individual, or that's their friend, that's their buddy. And see, all of these things contribute to criminal activity. So it's our, the way we live, and the Constitution tells you the kind of country we ought to have, right in your preamble. A national commitment to do something. Well, then you could take that. The family takes that. National commitment to self-discipline. We have tremendous indiscipline in this country. We got to fix that. If people are more disciplined, then we won't have a lot of this trouble that we are having today. People have things in themselves for years. They're just waiting for the time to strike out and hate someone. But we are undisciplined people. And this is contributing to the wave of violence we have in our country. But we could bring it under control. I'm convinced we could bring it under control, but it's going to require a lot of hard work. And we have to be upfront and honest with each other. The government has to be honest with the Bahamian people. Private citizens have to be honest with their family members and the local community where they live. For peace. See, the laws are to be made for what? Article 52.1. And I always think about this when they say they're writing law. The Constitution says Parliament may make laws for the peace, order, good government, the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. Do we have such laws today? With all this tremendous violence in our country, are there such laws? Are there statute laws? It's in the Constitution. Are there statute laws to bring the kind of peace and tranquility we need in this country?
I want to get back to 16 because this next section of 16 is very, very interesting. considering
Yes,
the
ma'am.
times in which we live.
Yes.
16.2d says, in order to prevent the commission by that person of a criminal offense. So in other words, if you see somebody about to commit or in the act of committing a criminal offense, let me read this again just to be sure that I'm reading this correctly. It says 16d, in order to prevent the commission by that person of a criminal offense.
Right. See, notice what it says.
So the person doesn't even have to be in the act. You just have to prevent them from.
Right. You can see, well, that is true. You can see signs where perhaps the individual is about to do something. You always hear it in these arguments that people have with each other, and the argument gets loud and it gets more troublesome. And you want to act responsibly, reasonably justifiable response to prevent a serious situation from occurring. And you can do that. The Constitution allows you to do that. But too many times, we got people who want to keep on inflaming it. And then that causes even more problems, not only for that particular person, but for everybody in the community. Where there's
I think a part of the challenge is that people nowadays are afraid to get involved to try to stop somebody from committing a crime, because people have lost their lives, quite frankly, trying to stop somebody else from harming someone or committing a crime, and the criminal turn on them and kill them. It's happened.
No, I'm not saying it hasn't happened, but see, it requires wisdom and understanding. Okay? It's how you approach a particular situation. Because I know in my community, I'm always in the process of trying to prevent people from committing criminal activity. Mm-hmm. Now, like I said, that, you have to be a person in a given situation. The respect of the community is very important, particularly preventing situations like this when it comes to criminal activity. Not everybody can do it. And with the crime the way it is today, people have fears. They are afraid. But does it mean that you are so fearful that if something is about to happen, you still do nothing about it? There's still something you can do. I tell people all the time, when you check Article 24.1, the Constitution, and some people get vexed with me when I keep going to Article 24.1, because I have to go to Article 24.1 because that's the supreme law, where it talks about people coming together in a given community for the protection of their interests. We have to look at the broader picture. It doesn't mean you must go out there and try to be a superhero. I tell people the Constitution does not say do that. You have to work in cooperation with others in order to keep the peace in a given community. And if we were doing that all alone, we wouldn't have the kind of criminal activity we have today, because we will speak to those persons and try to curtail any potential criminal activity that could happen. And it would be reasonably, it's the constitutional way of expressing it, reasonably justifiable. And so the thing is that, I can understand people exercising caution and restraint, because I do the same thing. And you're going to find that you just can't barge into a situation just like that. And you yourself are out there doing some things that you ought not to do. And that's the first thing they can throw up in your face. And that is a cause for total disrespect. And I'm not saying that is what people ought to do, because people do that kind of thing all the time, and they themselves are guilty of doing the same thing that they throw up in your face. So we have to be better citizens. We have to follow the law. The rule of law, as I mentioned at the beginning of the show, We need to follow the law. I'm not exempt from the law because you're behind the microphone, or because you're a police officer, because you're a minister in the government. You're not exempt from obeying the Constitution and following the Constitution. It's for everybody. But unfortunately, there are some people who believe I am the law, or I'm this and I'm that. There's no such thing in the Constitution. The law is for everybody. Now, whether you keep it, that's a different kettle of fish altogether. Whether you are obedient to the law, that's a whole horse of a different color. Unfortunately, we have too many people who are not following the law. We are undisciplined. It talks about a national commitment to self-discipline right in the preamble. We have all of this crime today because of undisciplined people. Look at the way how they behave on the roads. When I'm out in driving, you have all kind of driving infractions, all kind of regulations being violated. And they cut right in front of you and think nothing about it. So we have an undisciplined people. We have to have a national commitment to self-discipline. Now let's take that right down into the community. We have to have it at the community level, at the family level, at the constituency level, so we can have a better society, because we need it badly at this particular time. So the mere fact that people do not know these fundamental rights and freedoms in this Constitution is a real problem in our country. And I'm not giving them any excuse for misbehaving, because the Constitution doesn't allow for that. But you can't keep not knowing. You can't keep using that excuse. Well, I didn't know the law. Ignorance of the law is no excuse. You have to obey.
Right. Okay. Let's take our final break. And then on the other side of the break, we will deal with the last portion of Article 16, which is pretty straightforward. But we have to come nonetheless, and then we'll be done with Article 16. So let's take this break, and we'll continue with our journey through the Constitution on the other side. Stay with us. This is GPS.
Global Paradigm Shift will return after this.
Blood sugar levels play a key role in your appetite, weight gain, and overall health. When you have a blood sugar spike, you can feel confused, dizzy, and even have increased cravings. Eating carbohydrates, sugary or fatty foods, and not exercising can all cause blood sugar spikes. But now you have help in managing blood sugar levels. Sweeties by Youngevity was designed to help support healthy blood sugar levels, so you can power through your day. It's a synergistic blend of minerals, herbs, and nutrients that have been proven to support healthy blood sugar levels. Sweeties includes chromium, an essential trace mineral that's known for its contribution to healthy blood sugar levels and improved metabolism of carbohydrates, fats, and proteins. Cinnamon bark has been included for its naturally occurring antioxidants and support of a healthy heart. And we've even added gymnema. It's been used in Ayurveda for centuries to help promote healthy blood sugar. All the ingredients in Sweeties work together to give the best support available for blood sugar control. Sweeties, the blood sugar support supplement from Youngevity that helps control cravings and manage blood sugar levels through your day. To learn more, contact your Youngevity associate.
Welcome to Sunshine Auto, the hardest place on the planet for a rims, paint, and tires.
We are your auto superstore for rims, Lexani, Azaras, Trueform, Western, Lux, Fuel, Tracklight, Tough, Rough Racing, Velocity, Mud, All-Terrain, and low-profile tires. Cars, homes, and commercial window tinting. At Sunshine Auto, we put God first and customer is king.
Blasted loud.
As you age, factors like health, weight, diet, and lifestyle can all impact your bones, joints, and general mobility. Even everyday exercise can lead to wear and tear on your body. Over time, you might start to experience stiffness or pain due to damaged joints or connective tissue. Ultimate Glucogel by Youngevity was created to help you limit the effects of wear on your joints. It delivers a daily dose of collagen-rich gelatin your body needs for joint elasticity and maintenance. Ultimate Glucogel contains a 1-to-1 ratio of gelatin and glucosamine sulfate, which is a key building block of your bone matrix, cartilage, ligaments, tendons, and connective tissue. Gelatin's unique blend of amino acids not only help with muscle and joint health, but also has been shown to provide additional benefits for the brain, skin, and hair. Ultimate Glucogel. Natural, optimal daily support for joint health. To learn more, contact your Youngevity associate.
Global Radio 99.5.
Okay, so we are back with Professor Sidney MacArthur, Walter Thompson, and this is the last few minutes of the show for today on this Masterclass Monday. We're talking about the Constitution of the Bahamas, and we are now on Article 16 of the Constitution. And Article 16, in case you tuned in late, falls under Chapter 3, which deals with the protection of fundamental rights and freedoms of the individual. Now, Article 16 ends by saying, well, let me read 2 again, and then I'll go to the last part. It says, a person shall not be regarded as having been deprived of his life in contravention of this article if he dies as a result of the use to such extent and in such circumstances as are permitted by law of such force as is reasonably justifiable, or, this is the last part of 16, or if he dies as a result of a lawful act of war.
Right. Lawful act of war. Well, that has to do with the government of the Bahamas.
Right.
And so that's the scenario. I don't think we've been through anything like that as yet.
No.
Not
So
even
if the
in
government, if the Bahamas goes to war with another country and they enlist your services to serve in that, to fight against our enemies in that war, and you lose your life in that case, then the Constitution covers that.
No, it does. It would be reasonably justifiable. That's what the Constitution is saying. All right. So, and a person, of course, would have committed to that, an act of war. You have your soldiers and all of that. Now, I don't know about this situation where you willy-nilly take people to go in somebody else's territory to go fight.
Because you're jumping right ahead of me, Professor Casals. My next question. Define war. What is war?
All right, well, let me let you get that out. Then I would come in after you.
No, you started to answer the question before I
okay, all right, okay, yeah. Because see, you must understand, this is what the supreme law of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, right? So if somebody invades your territory, that's a whole horse of a different color.
Oh, you might invade their territory. If you're in a war, you could be sent to another territory to fight in a war. Yeah.
No, but hear me out now.
Okay.
If there's an act of war against your country, that's a whole horse of a different color.
Okay.
But now where you take your people, right, and you send them to somebody else's territory to fight something in their land, what they have to deal with. Remember now, each of these countries they ought to have, let me put it that way, because some of them may not have it. When you read our Constitution, it says what? This is the supreme law of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, not of Haiti, not of Cuba, not of any other place. So that means any action by the government of the Bahamas must be constitutionally sound. It doesn't mean that a particular personality can just jump up today or tomorrow and ain't quite sure what circumstances you're going to be involved in, because that still is not even clear as of this day. Not even clear. But you have determined to set your mind to send people, and you may be acting unlawfully in the decision you're about to make because you ain't sure of the circumstances. And you didn't get permission from the Bahamian people to do it. That's the thing. I mean, what kind of nonsense is this? See, when it comes to the act of war, yes, where you have to defend your own territory against an enemy that comes in and just like invading your house, that's your territory. Well, the country is our territory. But now when you take people from your country to go in somebody else's territory to fight something where they are responsible for, but you didn't get any consent from the people of the Commonwealth of Bahamas. Is that what democracy is supposed to be about? Is that the way we're supposed to behave? Is that constitutionally sound? That's why I tell people you got to watch the behavioral patterns of the government of the Bahamas.
So
And
the
we
key
have to
thing
tell
here
them.
then, the key thing here then is this. So let's say the Bahamas and Haiti were at war. They decided to decided to fight against each other in war. The government, according to the Constitution, would be justified to send troops to Haiti to fight in a war. But because in this particular case, it's not a war that's been declared on the Bahamas, but the troops would, if they were to be sent to try to restore order to Haiti, which has nothing to do with a war against the Bahamas. That is what removes it from the protection of the Constitution. Is that what you're saying?
Is that reasonably constitutionally sound? Is that reasonably, see the words again come back to my mind. Is it reasonably justifiable and constitutionally sound? That's the question you got to ask yourself. And if the answer is no, then it's unconstitutional. See, we got to look at what people are doing to us. And we must not close our eyes because we're living in very dangerous times now. We are seeing what is happening in Sudan. You see how breakup that country is? Because the people were not cautious in watching what these two particular personalities have done. One got one half, one got the other half. And all this mess going on now in that country where people have died, thousands and thousands of people are dead. So we got to be careful of the personalities who are running our national affairs and of the decision they're making. See, I just said early in the show about all these strange arrangements that the government of Bahamas is getting involved in these countries, but we know nothing about. Is that reasonably justifiable to ask the Bahamian people, you got to go by that, what you don't know nothing about? Nothing was ever presented to you to ask for your views. Now, they come up sometime with some things, what they want to tell the people, say, well, we got to ask you your view. But these are very serious national situations that have serious, major repercussions for generations to come. And we have no say in it. Huh? Is that the way it's supposed to be? That's what we got to ask ourselves.
We have to cut this off, Professor. Okay. Only got a minute left. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Okay,
all right. So thank you so much, as always, for your contribution. We actually got through all of 16. So God willing, when we come back next week, Monday, God willing, we will begin to tackle Article 17 of the Constitution. We actually got through an entire article in this one show.
Well, that's
good.
A good thing. That is good. And I hope that, that as I explained it to the Bahamian people, they will have some further questions on it and answers to it. But everything has to be constitutionally sound. Okay. That is my approach to Constitution. And if it isn't, then, it's contrary to law.
Right. Well, I want to thank you once again, as always, for your participation on the show. Much appreciated. All right. That's my time, guys. Got to get out of here tomorrow. We're going to have a very interesting show. We're going to be talking about the criminal element and the role of the fatherless home. And we're going to be talking to some men and at least one woman. But the men on this show tomorrow will be coming from the perspective of men who have tried to be more involved in their children's lives, but the system, they say, doesn't make that very easy. We're going to talk about all of that as it relates to criminality tomorrow. Don't miss tomorrow's show. Until then, I'm Michelle Malcolm. Thank you so much for tuning in, everybody. Take care, and I'll see you, God willing, tomorrow, same time, same place.
Global 99.5 FM reminds our listeners that the views and